I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited that you're here too. When I started doing the podcast, a year and a half ago now? I think. I don't even know. Time has been so weird over here. But when I started doing the podcast, I was committed, and life happened, and it just wasn't possible for me anymore. And I really didn't think that I'd be able to pick it back up. But I realized, which is really silly, if you are on my email list, you know that I send out really long emails every single week, or at least most weeks. And I don't know why. I feel like I always have so much to say in text. I just love talking. I love typing. And I always tell myself, or I tell my husband all the time, there's no way that half of the people on my email list actually read all of this because there's too much. So why did it not occur to me until now, like 21 weeks in to like these really long emails, that I should be turning my emails into podcast episodes? Crazy, right? So I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to share on the podcast again, and I can't wait to bring crochet and mental health talk here on the Crocheting Through Emotions podcast. So today I want to share with you 11 mindset shifts that have greatly improved my mental health. And if you have been around, you know that the past few years have been a real struggle for me. It's just been a rough couple of years. Anybody else? But I have done a lot of self-reflection and research, and I've really learned a lot about myself. And so these 11 mindset shifts that I'm going to share with you are just things that I have learned the past few years about myself and just about like the world in general and how I view the world. And I think that this will be really helpful for you too, especially if you're stuck in the anxiety cycle, if you're always overwhelmed, you feel like you're rushing through life, or you're just stressed out all the time. So go into this having an open mind, be prepared to really think about these things and not just let it go in one ear and out the other. And see if you agree, if you disagree, maybe you've never even thought about it before. A lot of these things I didn't even think about before I started really doing some inner work. Now, if you are a fellow crochet lover, grab your latest project, your favorite drink, and get cozy with me as we go over these 11 mindset shifts. Now, I'm going to share each of these 11 things today, but I'm not going to go into incredible detail. So if you want to hear more about a specific one of these, stay tuned. I'm going to create episodes for each one of these, or at least most of them. So make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes. The first mindset shift that I made is that perfectionism is overrated. I have a new mantra. It's progress over perfection. When you feel overwhelmed by all the things, focus on making progress, not getting it all done. At least not all at once. And I'll give you an example of my I'm telling you, for me specifically, perfectionism is one of those things that I have really struggled with my entire life. But the latest example that I have, because I'm still working on this, is creating this episode. I started thinking, whenever I had the thought to turn my emails into podcast episodes, my brain starts to go wild. It's something that I really don't feel like I can control, at least not yet. My brain goes wild and I start thinking, well, if I'm going to do that, then I need to purchase a course. I need to get an intro. I need to update my podcast art. I need to write out all these episode ideas. And I need background music. Did I already say that? My mind starts racing. I give myself anxiety just thinking about it. And then it never happens. Or at least this is what usually happens is I get in my head, I get really anxious, and then whatever I'm working towards just never happens because I get overwhelm paralysis. And I decided not to let that take over my life today. This is a little bonus because this is not one of my mindset shifts. But another thing I started doing is talking back to my anxiety. So I'll just have full-blown conversations with myself. I'll freak out for a minute and then I'll say, stop it. You need to stop self-sabotaging. You're doing this to yourself. You have this idea. It does not have to be anything crazy. You are a simple Sally. You don't need an intro. You don't need to make everything perfect. People don't really care about that. And yeah, would it be cool if I had an intro, if I had music, if I sounded all super professional like all the other great podcasters out there? Of course, it would be awesome. But for me, that's just going to stress me out more because I'm not going to give up until I find the perfect song, the perfect podcast art, the perfect background music. And so it's just not going to happen. If I choose to let my perfectionism get the better of me, it just won't happen. And so I would rather record these episodes without music or an intro or anything like that. And then one day, if I'm like, oh, here's a great piece of music, I will start adding it to my podcast from then and beyond, I don't have to have it right now because done is better than perfect. Mindset shift number 2 is that reading is more than just a hobby. It's an escape from reality that anyone struggling with anxiety needs to take advantage of. I could talk about reading forever. I am reading's biggest fan. But for a long time, I'm not going to go too deep, but as a kid, I loved to read. And as time went on, as I became an adult, I kind of just stopped reading. And I remember it had been probably 10 years before I had picked up a book. And I didn't really, it's just like arts and crafts. It's not something you really think about. It's just, you get so caught up in life and work that you just kind of forget the things that you used to love to do. And reading was one of them. But I didn't realize how much of an impact reading would make on my mental health. And back when, this was about 2 years ago now, I was sleeping horribly. And by sleeping horribly, I mean like falling asleep was really hard for me because I had lots of racing thoughts. I was replaying things that happened earlier in the day or just in the past, or, just thinking about things in the future, worries and stuff. But then I started reading at night, right before bed. I set my phone on the end table and I told myself I would not doom scroll at night anymore because I knew that was one of the causes of my anxiety. So I set my phone aside at a certain time and I read for the rest of the night. And I'll tell you, the books that really pulled me out of my anxiety and my depression that I was going through was ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses. And I know that the internet has just gone crazy over this series lately, and for good reason. It is such a good series. And if you don't think so, get out. I'm just kidding. But I really, truly love this series. Not only is it a great fiction fantasy book, but these characters, each character goes through trauma and they're each working through their own anxiety and depression and going from rock bottom to coming out on the other side. And it's like the most beautiful thing I have ever read. I've already read the entire series twice and I can't wait for the 6th book to go out, but that's another episode. So if you are struggling with anxiety, especially at night, I highly recommend that you pick up a book at the end of the day instead of doom scrolling. Do that for like a week and see if it makes any difference. The third shift I made was understanding my values. This is something that I really never understood. People would say, Oh, well, are you living by your values? Well, I don't know what that means. Nobody's ever explained that to me. And I'm in my 30s. Am I the only one? Like, do you know what your values are? I think that values are something that we think is set in stone. Like, we all have the same values. And yes, maybe some of them we have a lot in common because most of us value trust, honesty, respect, and community and things like that. Those are great values. But what I've learned to do is really dig deep into my values. And if you have never really thought about this, ask yourself, who do you love? What do you love doing? What do you wish you had more time for? These are the things that you need to have more of in your life in order to thrive. And those are your true values. The fourth mindset shift was realizing how much I rush through life. The world makes it feel so normal, like we should all be living this way. But when you rush through life, you miss the beauty of the journey. This can be something as simple as sitting in traffic and not getting road rage. But it can also be as important as spending meaningful time with your children. Like for me, I have an 11-year-old. How did that happen? You know, when people say that, time goes by in the blink of an eye, it's because we don't pay attention. I quit my job when my son was around 2 to be a stay-at-home mom. And so we were living on one income. And for me, being this independent person my entire life, it was really hard for me to stop working and then that be it. I needed to find an income stream. And so that's when I started my blog. I started selling my crochet work. I started designing and building my business from there. And for a long time, I just got kind of sucked in and just really wanted to make sure that I was doing my part, that I was contributing, even though my husband never, ever, ever made me feel like I needed to. It was just something that I felt I needed to do. So for the last almost 10 years, I have been building this business. And sometimes I let it take over my life. Actually, it took over my life for a really long time. And I really regret how much time I spent working instead of playing with him. And I'm not saying that I didn't spend time with him at all and I just ignored him his entire life. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that sometimes whenever I'm with him, and I'm really talking about all of my kids now, I have 3 boys. Sometimes when I'm with them, or really not anymore, but this was before, when I'm with them, I'm not really there. My mind is elsewhere. I'm thinking about work. I'm thinking about chores I have to do. I'm thinking about God knows what. And so what I mean by spending time with your kids, I just mean being there with them in that moment, present in the moment. Because we're not living in the moment most of the time, it feels like time is passing way faster than it should. And so one of the things that I have really been grinding into my mind is to be present, not on your phone and not thinking about other things, just being there with them. And that's why I've been practicing mindfulness for a while now. And I think I've talked about this before in previous episodes, but I'm also going to dive deeper into this in the future because mindfulness is so important to me. It's one of my core values. And no, it's not just meditation. It is so much more than that. I think that mindfulness gets misconstrued a lot. And so that's why I want to dive deeper into it later. But today is not the day. But if your kid asks you a question, or if they want you to read a book at the end of the day, or if they're whining and crying, or they're teething, yes, that one's getting me right now, just tell yourself that it's just a phase, or you are never going to be in this moment again. Your child will never be this age again. Enjoy the moments now while you can, even if they're hard moments, so that you don't regret it later. The fifth mindset shift that I have is my view towards reading the Bible. I never really understood the different religions. I have always believed in God, but I've never had a strong connection with him or a strong relationship with him. Growing up, I went to church here and there, but I was never really taught anything really about religion. And so it wasn't until my 30s that I started becoming interested or like really just looking for answers, because nothing's worse than not understanding something so important. And so I started digging, and I decided last year to start reading the Bible, because for me, the Bible was always kind of scary, and you only hear bad stories about it. And we're going to talk about this later, about how to not let the world shape how you view things, but we'll get to that in a future mindset shift. But for now, I just had views about the Bible that were not true. And I didn't realize that until I actually started reading the Bible, and I started really loving it. I have not made my way through the entire Bible yet, but I just finished my 26th book, and it's my goal this year to finish the entire Bible. Right now, I'm working through the Bible recap with Tara Lee Cobble. It is so fantastic. If you've never read the Bible before, I highly recommend following along with her. But I have had so much fun, and I've grown to love and prioritize every moment that I am reading my Bible. And I would say that I wish I started sooner, but I really do believe that I started at the right time. And so it's never too late. I'm not saying that you should read the Bible. I mean, I think if you want answers and some revelation in your life, then that is the first place you should go. But you should only really read the Bible when you're interested, because that's when you'll get the most out of it. So not only have I been reading my Bible, but I've learned that like translations matter. That is a huge thing to understanding what you're reading. And then I've also discovered devotionals and Bible studies, and those also make a huge difference, and they make it so much more fun too. So anyway, my mindset shift for number 5 is that studying the Bible is actually really fun, and I've grown to really love it. And I've learned so much. Mindset shift number 6 is that setting things right on the inside mentally needs to come before setting things right on the outside. Because if you don't have internal focus and motivation, you'll never achieve anything. So in the past, I've said the state of your house is the state of your mind. And that basically means to me that when your house is chaos, your mind is chaos. And that's just how I operate. I don't know if everybody feels this way, but I've noticed that when my house is cluttered or messy or disorganized, then that's how my brain feels. I'm constantly feeling overwhelmed. However, you have to do the work on the inside before you're able to tackle the work on the outside. You have to learn, and this is what I'm really talking about, is understanding your triggers, what causes your anxiety, what causes your overwhelm, what causes your stress, what causes your depression, and then learning to become more self-aware, which I guess that would go hand in hand with knowing your triggers, is being self-aware, understanding your emotions, and learning to cope with them as well. And once you know those things, you'll be able to better take care of your mind. And when your mind is taken care of, then you're able to take care of your outside world. And that's why I've come to realize how important self-care really is. Because if you don't take care of yourself, nobody else will. Not in the way that you really need it, because you are in charge of your mind. Nobody else can fix that for you. This one I probably should have shared after number 5, but the mindset shift number 7 is that God, our creator, created us to be creative. And the shift that I had here is just knowing that he's a creator. And that made me feel so much more connected to him. It makes me view things completely different. He is an artist. He loves creativity. He loves goal setting. And you don't have to be an artist to be creative and really relate with this. You can be creative in your job by doing something that you love. It's hard for me to put this into words, but I really learned this through the book. I believe it's The Artisan's Soul. And I'm going to read a quote that I wrote down from this book. To create is to be human. To create is to fulfill our divine intention. To create is to reflect the image of God. To create is an act of worship. People only become slaves when they've lost their dreams. Mindset shift number 8 is that we have all the time in the world to do everything we want to do. We just have to make the time. And I know that this is easier said than done, but that doesn't make it any less true. You decide what you prioritize in life. If you prioritize work, then that's where all your time's going to go. If you prioritize watching TV, well, that's where your time's going. But if you prioritize the things that you truly enjoy, then you will be able to find the time to make those things happen. And to do this, you'll have to, once again, I will go deeper into this in the future. But what you can start by doing is really taking a look at where your time's going. What do you do in a week? I'll give you one quick tip. Check the screen time on your phone and see how much time you spend on your phone. I read a really scary statistic the other day. I think it was Mel Robbins who posted this. So hold on, let me pull it up and let you know what she said. She has this reel on Instagram that says 20 years of your life is wasted on your phone. Is that not terrifying? So we are so addicted to our phones. And I am putting myself in that group of people because I know that I'm addicted to it. I have this thing set up on my phone where I have the screen time on my front screen, so I know exactly how much time I've spent on my phone during the day at any given time. And if you dig deeper into the screen time settings on your phone, if you have an iPhone, it tells you exactly how many times you pick up your phone too. And if you start paying attention to this, it'll upset you how many times you pick up your phone for no reason, just because it's a habit. I do this all the time and it drives me nuts. So we do have the time. It's just that we prioritize things that really don't matter. And this is something that we just are going to have to unlearn. That's another important thing, is unlearning things that were either the norm or just something that we grew up not knowing like the true extent of, if that makes sense. So just learn to prioritize the things that really matter to you. Mindset shift number 9 is going to be hard for a lot of you. I was reading a book I would say a few months ago, but was it a few months ago? I was reading a book a few months ago, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I highly recommend reading this book. It was so good. But one of the quotes in there that really hit me was, you have to find a job that makes your heart feel big instead of one that makes it feel small. Some people go to college to learn something specific to be in that career in the future. Other people will go to college and then when they get a job, they do the complete opposite of what they went to college for. And then others will not go to college at all and get a great job, or not go to college and they just get job after job, just worrying about the money and making sure that they're getting paid. So everybody views jobs differently. So this is something you're really going to have to look inside yourself with. But it is true that we should all have a job that makes our heart feel big instead of one that makes it feel small. If you are in a job that makes your heart feel small, you don't have to be there. Yeah, it might be hard to switch positions, but you're not supposed to live your life miserable. You should enjoy what you do, especially if you're there 40 hours a week for most of your life. Mindset shift number 10 is if you want things to change, you have to change the way you do things. You can't complain about how things are if you're not doing anything to change them. And I'm just going to leave it right there. Finally, we have mindset shift number 11, and this is probably the most important of them all. Don't let the world tell you what you like, what you don't like, how to feel, or how not to feel. You have to experience something firsthand to know if you do or do not like something. And this is something that I got trapped in for the longest time. As we're growing up, we learn to think the way our parents think, right? Because obviously they have the most influence on us. And then once we get to school, other kids have influence on us, other teachers have influence on us, and we start to shape the world in our minds the way that other people think. And it wasn't until I turned 30 that I realized that my brain is my own brain. I make my own opinions. And this might sound silly. Like, you're probably like, you're in your 30s and you only just started thinking for yourself. Yeah. I'm not ashamed to admit that. It's true. It's just not something that I really thought about. At least not on a bigger scale. Of course, I knew that I made my own choices. But I mean things like, here, we'll just use an example. Cloth diapering. When I say that, how do you feel? What immediately comes to your mind? For me, anytime I heard cloth diapering, I thought that was the most disgusting thing ever. I was like, why in the world would anyone want to cloth diaper? Ew, gross. So for my first two kids, I didn't for one, I don't even think I knew about cloth diapering with at least my first child. But whenever I heard it with my second, I was like, yeah, no way. So it didn't even have a second thought, didn't do any research about it, nothing. So the third time around, I have my third baby, pregnant, and I'm thinking about diapers. And someone mentions cloth diapering, and I, for the first time, really stopped to think, what is cloth diapering? Why do people cloth diaper? And then I realized, with the more research that I do, that one, it's not as gross as you would think. And two, if you think back to the old days before disposable diapers, that's what they did anyway. Why did we ever even move to disposable diapers, especially knowing how much harm it's doing to our environment? Oh, that is a tangent that I could go on. I don't understand, and I'm just going to say this real quick. I don't understand why when we go to the doctor, let's say we're taking our kid to the pediatrician for the first time, or even while you're pregnant, why don't doctors just say, hey, let me just discuss cloth diapering with you so you have that knowledge? But this is why YouTube is so amazing and Google and the internet is so amazing, because we find out this information from other people. But it just infuriates. I just don't understand why doctors wouldn't share this information. Because no, it's not, quote, medical advice. But we're talking about taking care of kids. So why not at least share the option about cloth diapering so more people know about it? Meanwhile, there are piles and piles of gross, disgusting, disposable diapers taking up the landfills in different parts of the world. And guess what? It takes 500 years for disposable diapers to decompose. That's pretty ridiculous, right? So anyway, like I said, that's a whole tangent. I apologize. But that just goes to show that's just one thing out of hundreds of things that you could have had ingrained in your mind, but really didn't give much thought to before. So what are some things that the world has forced you to believe that you can maybe open your mind about and rethink, or maybe do your own research on? I think the world would be a much better place if we were all a little bit more open-minded. Because then we'd be able to see from other people's perspectives, and maybe there would be less judgment, less fighting. I don't know. I'm not here to save the world because I know that that's impossible. But I do believe it's important to have an open mind. The world is not black and white. There's lots of gray area. Okay, so maybe I should have made that like a 2-part series or something, because this went way longer than what I was expecting. But that's it for my 11 mindset shifts. Let me know if any of these resonate with you. If so, I hope you take at least one of them and really think about it. How can you improve that aspect of your life? Do you have any more mindset shifts that you would like to share? I would love to hear them. Come join our Facebook group, The Crochetty Bunch, and learn to crochet with us, and also share your mental health tips. If you reached it to the end of the episode, thank you so much for sticking around for this entire thing. I know that I went on a lot of tangents, and I appreciate you staying here with me. But I'm just excited to be back. And I would also love if you would leave a review, because that will help me reach more creative, beautiful women like you. I'll see you in the next one.